Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of our regularly scheduled Thursday afternoon Gaza War update. I'm Jonathan Ruhe, JINSA's Director of Foreign Policy, and I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by JINSA Distinguished Fellows, General Yaakov Amidror and General Amikam Norkin. We've got certainly no shortage of things to discuss, so we'll jump right into it. So I think everyone's in our audience has. Oh, speaking of our audience, one more reminder to our audience: if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll do my best to address them in the time we have. So I guess our audience has heard probably plenty about the interesting spy craft and some of the more thriller aspects of what we've seen happen in Lebanon the past couple of days with pagers and walkie-talkies and cell phones and all sorts of electronics going boom. And we can certainly discuss some of that if you'd like. But I guess, General Amidror, I'll jump straight to you with the bigger question. Put what's happened in the last couple of days, if you can, please, in the context of what this might mean for the potential for a war in the north, because certainly even before this, we heard about Israel moving to a new phase of the war in the north, and we've seen some preparations potentially for that. So I'd love to get your thoughts on what this means next in the north.
Good evening. I think it's first of all, the first lesson is be careful with your communication. So check and see that each of them is not hitting by overcharge. I think that if no one admit who did it, and no one took responsibility, but assuming that if it is done by Israel, I think that the signal from this decision is that Israel still prefer not to have a big war, full-wage war yet, because we still have some work to do in Gaza, and to move from one war to another, it's not convenient from military point of view and from the legitimacy point of view. But the signal here is very clear. Israel doesn't want a war, but Israel is ready to take more risks, even if it might lead to a war. And it is a different attitude toward the war and the consequences of its operation. And I think there are two reasons for this change. One is we feel much better about Gaza. Rafah area was taken by our forces. The brigade and the battalions there had been dismantled by the 162 division. They blow more than 13 kilometers of tunnels. The commander of the division said that it is more sophisticated and more than Rafah on the ground. The underground system under Rafah is bigger than Rafah on the ground. So we feel much better about Gaza. We have some areas to which we have to go and to clean it, but basically the situation is good, reflecting the fact that the 90% of the Hamas were dismantled. And we have a pressure, huge pressure domestically, because we have in Israel 80,000 refugees which cannot go back to their homes in the north. And it is more significant because the refugees from the south, 85% of them went back to their homes near Gaza Strip, around Gaza Strip. And if you combine both the fact that we can take more forces from Gaza, and there were some announcements about moving the the special 98th division from the south, instead of going into Gaza to the north. So the feeling that we have, that Gaza is under control and we can take forces out of Gaza to fight in the north, and the pressure from the refugees from the north who are living in many parts of Israel. This combination together led the government to say, okay, we have here something that we can do or not to do. We are not hesitating to do it because we don't want a war, but we are ready to take the risk. Something that I'm not sure that they would have been said, I don't know, 5 months ago, 4 months ago. So the combination is very important to remember. That might lead to a war. It's a decision that Hezbollah will have to take. The Secretary of Hezbollah gave a speech yesterday night. He didn't say anything significant. It looked very bad, but he didn't say anything which is very significant.
So General, I want to come back to that issue of the Nasrallah speech and what Hezbollah might do.
No, I will not elaborate the speech. What I want to say is that the Iranians, that their ambassador was injured as well. Ask yourself the question how he had a pager of Hezbollah. He's a diplomat which supposed not to be involved with terrorist organization. So the Iranians and Nasrallah will have to make a decision. Israel is very active, by the way, with the Air Force in the last few hours, bombing targets in Lebanon, but it is something that we are doing in the last 8 months since the Hezbollah decided to launch the rockets and missiles into Israel at the second day of the war. So this is the situation, and this is the frame within which you have to understand the operation, or I could call it the fact that all this communication system had been ignited by someone probably there.
So thank you, General. So General Norkin, I'd like, since it's such a big question that I opened with, I'd like to sort of ask you the same question in a little bit different way, and to bring in one of the questions from our audience. So obviously it's a remarkable technological and covert achievement to have all these exploding electronics. And we've heard plenty of different theories about the how and the why, but I guess, I would love to get your thoughts on, what you see as the strategic value of doing a thing like that, and given that it happened, what might be, do you see a changing strategic situation and risk for escalation in the north now?
Well, thank you, and good evening to the audience. If I might give you an advice, I think that this is not the right time to invest, although this is very good technology, at the Hungarian company. So I know that many of you listened to these webinars in the last few months. And once we talked about the North, we always mention that the roadmap is to have, let's say, a ceasefire agreement with, and such an agreement with Hamas, brings the hostages back, and then to move to the north and to decide if we can achieve our strategic goals by agreement or by military activities. Once there is no ceasefire at the north, I think by operating such an operation, let's say Israel, so I won't speak about the technology, but I think from the strategic point of view, such an action push Nasrallah, Hezbollah to the corner, because he lost thousands of warriors that went out of his units. He lost the main communication system. He lost a lot of, let's say, intelligence assets, and we might achieve a better strategic situation by pushing him to the corner without getting into Lebanon, without destroying the Lebanon strategic targets. So there is an opportunity, but as we all know, it's not enough. And Nasrallah is not going to give us all our wishful thinking just because of the beeper operation. So once it happened, we need to do more in a very short time, because if we are going to do it in 2 months, it won't happen. It won't help. So this is the reason that if any of you is going to open the media now, you might see, as General Amidror mentioned, tens of airplanes acting now in the south of Lebanon. So Israel is pushing Nasrallah to the corner. He lost thousands of warriors. Now he's going to lose more targets, more rocket launchers, more rocket storage, more headquarters. And in the last few months, we cut the Hezbollah operational capabilities slice by slice every day, very narrow slices, but he already lost a lot of his operational capabilities without moving to a full-scale war. So this is, I think that this is the Israeli interest, to change the strategic situation in the north, because for the tactical situation we are quite good, we're quite well, so we need to change the strategic situation. We are pushing Hezbollah slice by slice without moving to full-scale war, because we don't want to have, let's say, missiles at the center of Israel, and we don't want to destroy any Lebanon strategic assets, because we are not fighting against the state.
Mhm.
Maybe if those activities, those steps that Israel already did in the last few days, if it's not good enough, maybe there is no other option, and we need to step up to a higher scale.
Thank you, General. And I just want to ask you one quick follow-on question, and I'll ask something similar to General Amidror. So you mentioned, trying to change the strategic situation with Hezbollah. Given the price that Hezbollah has been paying, especially recently, and given that Hezbollah is not allowed to get, if from Iran's perspective at least, Hezbollah is not allowed to get into its own war with Israel. It's an insurance policy for Iran. Do you think there's a possibility that Hezbollah may agree through whatever way to some ceasefire short of a ceasefire in Gaza? Because I know they've always been saying they're doing this in order to secure a ceasefire for their fellow Iranian proxy Hamas. But I would just love your thoughts on, is that what you mean by a changing strategic situation? Could it be something else?
I think that the strategic situation is that Hezbollah need to withdraw from the south of Lebanon, to take out all his soldiers south to the Litani River.
North.
To take them
to the north,
to the north part of, take them out from the south part, south to the Litani River. And this is the main goal for the IDF. So once we are going to achieve it, I think that we are going to change the security situation in the north, and we might ask the people to move back to their homes. So this is the Israeli goals. But I think that you cannot do it just by military power. You need to work with both hands. One had military power, other hand diplomatic activities. From the media, I cannot find any diplomatic activities. Maybe General Amidror can add from his point of view, but I think that there should be a diplomatic campaign that should follow the military activities.
So I'd like to get to that question of the diplomatic campaign as well. It's certainly a question for me, but before we jump straight to that, General Amidror, we're curious your thoughts. We've heard recently that the idea has been floated publicly, at least, that Israel might be preparing or be thinking about a ground incursion to achieve this buffer zone that General Norkin mentioned. Do you think that's a growing possibility after all these many months, given that everything else seems to be changing on the tactical and operational side?
Yes, it might happen. From my point of view, my personal point of view, it should happen. I believe that we should go into the south part of Lebanon, cleaning it from all the Hezbollah infrastructure. That will be a high economic price, first, and second, they will not have the means and the capabilities to attack Israel from South Lebanon in the future. And we will have to work again and again from outside, inside, to find a way how we are reducing the capabilities of Hezbollah, because unlike Gaza, we cannot go into Lebanon to put them kind of in closed area in which we can destroy all of them. That is impossible in Lebanon. We can do a lot, but not to destroy the organization. And this is why it is so important that in the south we will have a no man's land from which no one can attack Israel directly, and Israel will have to continue to bomb Hezbollah in Lebanon to destroy as many targets as possible. Here, I don't see a big change. After the war, we will have to continue to fight Hezbollah. We will be in a better position if they don't have the ability to attack Israel directly with the Radwan forces, if they have less missiles and rockets and so on and so forth. But it is not Hamas case in which the order is to annihilate them, to smash them totally. With Hezbollah, it's impossible in the situation of today, if it was possible with anyhow. And we should prepare ourselves for be a long war during which the organization which met me at the end, that is what we should do in Lebanon. We have to organize it in a way that will allow us to bring back the citizens to the north. If that can be done without a big war, just to clean the south part of Lebanon, I personally believe that it cannot be done without a big war.
So thank you for, you anticipated my exact next question, which is there such a thing as a limited ground operation to push Hezbollah back from the border?
My assessment that it is impossible, because whatever we will do, the other side will have to react, and this reaction will bring an escalation from our side and so on and so forth. I think whenever I asked about this possibility, it's something that we should have kind of preparations for, but it is impossible to achieve. At the end, there are two sides in the war. You cannot make it the way that you want it to be. You don't control the ability of the other side to escalate, and he has all the interest to escalate at the end, if we are very successful at the beginning. But So my advice is to be prepared for a big war. That probably will be the situation at the end.
So thank you, General. You're just queuing up my next question very very presciently. So
I apologize.
sometimes I do jump all over the place with these webinars. So this is a question. I guess I'll ask it to both of you, General Norkin. I'll ask it to you first, and it comes from our audience. You know, there's talking about preparation for a large war, and obviously the United States certainly has thoughts on that, and we're clearly seeing messaging from the Biden administration about calling on all sides to de-escalate. But from our audience, this is a great question. How reliable is U.S. support, both diplomatic and military resupply? And what are Israel's options if U.S. support proves to be less than ironclad, as the Biden administration likes to say? So, General Norkin, I'll ask you that question first.
Well, first, I think that the IDF is preparing more than one plan. Just to Amidror mentioned that there is only one option, that we should move to a full-scale war. Full-scale war after a year of war in Israel, it's mean another few months. And I'm not sure that this is the best situation for our nation. Maybe there is no other option, but we need to be able to plan different plans and to use different tools. And I think that there is an option to achieve our strategic goals without a deep ground maneuver into the state of Lebanon. There is an option, and we should plan such operational plan. And with a massive air power operation, we can destroy a lot of Hezbollah assets. And once we understand that Hezbollah won't disappear, also after a full-scale war, we should consider different, let's say, levels. So this is just a reference to General Amidror answer. About the American support, as always, I would like to start with thank you and appreciation, because we got enough ammunition now to do our activities because of the American support. But once we are going, or might, there is an option that we are going to have a full-scale war in the north, Iran might join, and maybe Iran is going to try to attack Israel again. And maybe there are some militias that will try to attack Israel from the eastern border, Syria or Jordan. So in that case, I think that the American support is a major issue, and we need the American support to defend the state of Israel from, let's say, 7 fronts. And for that reason, we should push forward with more and faster supply chain, ammunition, and for the ground forces, mainly ammunition for the ground forces and for the air force.
Mm-hmm. General Amidror, so now I'm back to jumping all over the place. So everything's in its right place, but we got a very interesting question from our audience that it's more of a follow-up to what I've asked you about, General Amidror, which is if there is an operation in Lebanon, as you laid out, isn't this just mowing the lawn like what happened with Hamas before October 7th? And why would the population return to Israel's north if Hezbollah can still fire on them, but just from farther away?
The main reason for the evacuation of the Israeli population from the north is not the ability of Hezbollah to launch rockets and missiles. It is more about the ability of the special forces of Hezbollah, the Radwan forces, to do something which is equivalent, mimic of the 7th of October by Hamas. And if it will be clear that Hezbollah is not in the south, north of the Litani, for example, again, I don't believe that it can be achieved without a big war. But let's assume that it happened. I think that many citizens will feel that it is secure enough. And missiles and rockets, they can launch all over Israel. That it will not be the issue which will stop the citizens, the people of the north to go back to their homes. If the range is around 10 kilometers from the border to the Hezbollah forces and the Litani, they cannot use Kornet anti-missile tanks for bombing striking the buildings and around the border, and the same will be about rockets, missiles, and so on. They can tactically or mechanically they can do it, but it's not the same. It's not the same threat. It's not the same threat without the Kornet and without the ability to launch a strike. Invaded it. They cannot invaded Israel. I think it's a different situation, totally different situation. All of them will come back. I don't know, but many of them will come back. This is about our expectations from what can be achieved. About the war itself, look, for 20 years, we are preparing ourselves for a war in Lebanon. We understood that it is the stronger enemy, much more dangerous than Hamas, and the decision was to prioritize our efforts into the north and not into the south. Maybe this is the seeds of the mistakes of the 7th of October, I don't know. But anyhow, we are much better prepared. All the forces had been trained. What was the basis for the training? The scenario in the north. All the commanders are very familiar with the land and the situation and all the technical needs in those rocky areas. Why? That was the enemy against which we prepare ourselves. And very important that as you know, we didn't have even one human agent in Gaza, but we have many in Lebanon. And we have many targets based on this information of these unknown agents. And I think that one of the surprises of Hezbollah will be the level that Israel penetrated the organization and understand where and how the organization is organized in the south, and targeting all these facilities is part of the intelligence efforts. So they were, ironically, in a way, the IDF is much better prepared for war in Lebanon than he was prepared for the war almost 9 months or 10 months ago in Gaza. So it will be a devastating war, but a war in which Israel has many advantages because we prepare ourselves mainly for this war and not the war in the south.
So thank you. That was incredibly informative, and it spurred a follow-on question from our audience. Basically the same question, but if there is a large war, how are you concerned about Israel's defense against a ground invasion from Syria? And obviously it's different than the different situation in the blue line, but that's our audience would like to know.
What the Iranians, Iranians bought what I called in 6 years ago the ring of fire around Israel. They had in mind strong element in Lebanon, Hezbollah, the strongest element of the ring. They had in mind building another strong element in Gaza. They succeeded. It's Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And they had a dream, which was led by Soleimani, to build independent Iranian capability in Syria. For that, they brought militias from other places in the Middle East. And they tried to build significant infrastructure, Iranian infrastructure in Syria. And that is parallel to the time that we decided to begin what we are calling Mabam, the war between the wars. And we did everything that we could based on intelligence to stop them from building the strong element in Syria. And we succeeded. They didn't make even 25% of what they had in mind. Soleimani dream about Iranian independent strong force in Syria hadn't been materialized, thanks to the efforts that we did. So today in Syria, there are some militias. They are not well organized. They don't have chain of command, which is equivalent to the chain of command that Hezbollah has. So it is dramatically less challenge than the abilities of Hezbollah in Lebanon. But we understand that it might be a place in which we try to find our weak point. There are forces there, is full the division headquarters, and we are sensitive to this area. And if they try to surprise us, I think that the chances that they will be surprised are very minimal. And anyhow, there are many forces of the IDF, mainly, by the way, reserves in the Golan Heights.
Very, very interesting. Thank you. So, General Norkin, I'd like to ask you about something completely different. It's been a long week, certainly. Kind of hard to believe. Only 4 or 5 days ago, there was a Houthi missile that was launched at Israel. From the reports, it looked like it's the farthest a Houthi missile has ever gotten inside Israeli airspace. So a couple of different questions for you. The reports, at least in the public's, call it a failure to intercept that missile before it reached Israeli airspace. I'm curious on your assessment of that. And also the Houthis have claimed it was a hypersonic missile, and would love to get your reaction to that claim as well.
Well, let me be clear there. It wasn't a supersonic missile. They got no supersonic missile. It was a ballistic missile. Unfortunately, I think that the arrow hit the missile, but maybe didn't destroy 100% from the warhead, and some of, let's say, parts of the missile fell around the area of the city of Modi'in. I'm happy to announce that no one heard from these metal parts that fall in this city, most of them in open areas. But it's not the first ballistic missiles. Since the October 7, the Houthis launched almost 200 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. We all know that there is a campaign that the American Navy is leading against the Houthis' capabilities. We should ask ourselves why such a quite big force didn't destroy the Houthis' capabilities, operational capabilities till now. I think that we should be more aggressive. And I think that after this ballistic missile, Israel should consider to act again in Yemen. I think that the previous action in the Hudaydah port was a very good decision and a very good, let's say, air operation. But now we should consider to do it again.
So thank you. And I just would like to follow up very quickly on your last part there. So we saw, as you mentioned, the Israeli response previously, which was an attack on Hudaydah port in Yemen, involved an incredible long distance for Israeli aircraft. You mentioned also there's been difficulties in counteracting the Houthi launch capabilities. As you mentioned, hundreds of these things have been launched. Would you expect, or would you assess that an Israeli response might be similar to before, or would it try to go after some of these launch capabilities, or is that too hard to theorize about in public?
Well, to try to find each of the launcher, it's a mission. I'm not sure that this is a mission for Israel 2,000 kilometers north to Yemen. If you want to find those launchers, you need to be over the Yemen's airspace all around 24/7. So we need to focus on more strategic targets. Like we did, there are more strategic targets, and Israel should consider to act against the Houthis after the last ballistic missile launching.
So speaking of ballistic missiles, it's been a busy week on other fronts. General Amidror, I'd like to ask you a question related to the news that Iran is sending tactical missiles to Russia for its war against Ukraine. I know that's more than a week ago, but we've heard since then the United States and Britain have said that this might Iran's sort of payback, this quid pro quo, is they might get Russian assistance on their nuclear program, on the program itself. I would be curious for your thoughts. What's the view from Israel in terms of the news that Iran and Russia are deepening this cooperation further?
Yaakov.
General Amidror?
Well,
General Norkin, please.
I will take the question, and I think that what happened between Russia and Iran, it's a strategic global issue. It's not an Israeli challenge, it's a global challenge. And I think that it's part of the competition between the American, let's say, team with the West, Israel part of it, and against the Russian, China, Iranian team. So this is another very good reason to the international community to act against the Iranian capabilities. First of all, Iranian nuclear capabilities, but not only nuclear capabilities. The international community should act against Iran with sanction and other activities to avoid any operational ballistic missiles, radar, drones, suicide drone, cruise missiles, all those assets that Iran is sending to Russia, sending to Europe.
Thank you, General Norkin. I think with that, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, and I realize it's very late in Israel, so I'd like to thank you and thank General Amidror for their time this evening. And I would just like to note for our audience that keep your eyes peeled in the next week or so for a forthcoming JINSA report on Israel's next northern war and what the U.S. can do to help its ally in that situation. So Thank you as always for joining us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you,
very
General.
much. Best regards from the group in Prague. I landed at 3 o'clock in the morning today, and I hope they are landing back in their countries separately.
They should be soon. And then having been on playing those trips, they're certainly exhausting. So everyone get a good night's sleep. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you very much.